I watch Alex wrestle with his alarm like it's an angry octopus that somehow learned to be dramatic. And I promise you this, the alarm does not actually enjoy getting snoozed. Alex just insists on being generous with time theft. While he argues with a vibrating rectangle, I'm mentally drafting the 3-step plan we'll need to stop this slow-motion robbery of willpower. And yes, step 1 involves fewer button negotiations and more strategy. If your mornings look anything like Alex's, you're in good company. And by good companies, I mean a support group with coffees. I tell Alex, with the same calm as a coach who knows their player has a snack break coming, that willpower is not a superhero cape you wear. It's more like your phone battery. And yes, Alex's battery is on 3% because he spent yesterday swiping through decision menus. We map out how decision fatigue sneaks up like a quiet roommate who eats your leftovers and leaves the dishes. And I can't resist pointing out that blaming lack of willpower is a lot like blaming gravity for your clumsy choices. The good news, you can charge it, ration it, and even avoid draining it in the first place, which is the chapter we're about to swallow like vitamin gummies. I explain to Alex, who rolls his eyes with the delicate melodrama of someone who once meditated for 14 seconds and called it a lifetime achievement, that habit stacking is basically cheating willpower in the nicest possible way. You glue a new habit onto an old, reliable one so your brain thinks it's just following a comfortable path. We talk about cue routine reward, like it's a tiny soap opera inside your skull, and I let Alex know that stacking a new 2-minute morning page onto his coffee ritual is less commitment and more tactical brilliance. He pretends to be unimpressed, but his coffee did that funny little victory steam curl, which is a yes from me. I convince Alex to try the 2-minute rule, which he accepts like a dare he thinks he'll win. Spoiler, he almost does, but then remembers there's a donut in the break room and nearly renegotiates his promise to 2 minutes and a celebratory bite. We set the timer for 2 honest minutes of a new habit. He chooses stretching because he thinks it makes him look like a disciplined cartoon, and while he contorts himself into shapes I describe as pretzel aspirational, I narrate the tiny victory dance in my head. That 2 minutes becomes a psychological coin he can flip in future decisions, and Alex calls himself a minimalist athlete, which I record for blackmail later. Between Alex's heroic snooze battles and pretzel stretches, I take a beat to remind you that none of this is magic, it's design. And design beats motivation every time when motivation is on vacation. I get a little theatrical here, whispering that I'm keeping tabs on Alex like a benevolent trainer with a ridiculous hat, and I promise to share the exact hacks that stop willpower from leaking away like cheap coffee. Also, note to self, hide donuts at key moments to test resilience levels, strictly scientific, obviously. I explain the anchor method to Alex as if I'm giving him a secret map to a moderately hidden treasure. The treasure being fewer, why didn't I moments, which feels priceless in a world of subscription boxes and endless browser tabs. He places his anchor, coffee, because coffee has negotiation power, and we pick a new micro-habit to clip onto it, like 1 minute of journaling, which Alex insists will be called brain unloading to sound dramatic. I point out that anchoring relies on consistency of context. Your coffee corner is basically the anchor's dock, and Alex makes a very convincing I'm an anchor's face, which translates to a 10% increase in commitment, statistically speaking, by which I mean my optimism. I show Alex how one tiny habit can knock over the next like a well-trained domino set, and he gives me that proud grin people reserve for moments of mild genius and leftover pizza discovery. We design a mini chain: coffee, 1 journal line, 2-minute stretch, 5 push-ups, and I tease Alex that he's basically building a tiny fitness meets philosophy studio in 90 seconds flat. He tests it, loves the momentum, and for precisely 3 minutes believes he's cracked the code of life, which is a healthy and temporary feeling I fully endorse. I warn Alex, who, naturally, immediately tries to stack 17 new habits like he's assembling IKEA furniture without instructions, that one of the top stacking mistakes is jamming too many things on one anchor until it collapses under the weight of ambition. We practice saying no, gently, like a polite bouncer for your schedule, and I catch him attempting to add learn Mandarin to his coffee ritual, which I veto with love and a raised eyebrow. The lesson lands. Keep stacks short, celebrate the tiny wins, and hold back on multilingual ambitions before noon. I coach Alex to set up nudges that do the reminding for him because his internal reminder system is apparently on a permanent vacation and refuses to pick up calls, texts, or motivational advice. We rearrange his space so the notebook is next to the coffee machine, the running shoes are by the door, and I dramatically tape a tiny note that says 2 minutes, which he treats like a tiny motivational flag. These nudges reduce decision friction, and watching Alex discover the power of a better environment is oddly heartwarming, sort of like watching someone realize socks are more comfortable when matched. I tell Alex that rituals are basically habit stacks with good PR. They feel meaningful, are easy to repeat, and the meaning part tricks you into sticking with them, which is why humans have always loved rituals and also why Alex now believes his mini morning ceremonies deserves a name. We give his routine a short, slightly ridiculous title that makes it feel official. He takes a deep theatrical bow, and then we measure success not by perfection but by return rate, whether Alex comes back to the routine even when life throws curveballs. He promises to honor the ritual and also to keep the bow optional. Everyone has limits. I break down first principles thinking to Alex in a way that makes him nod, and then immediately test whether coffee is a first principle, which it is not, but I appreciate the enthusiasm. We peel goals back to the basics. Why, what, how, and I coach him to ask deeper questions, so his habits are built on reasons that survive boredom and late-night snack attacks. When Alex starts asking why 3 times in a row like a philosophical toddler, I know the approach is working, and I secretly enjoy watching his brain assemble simpler, stronger choices out of previously tangled intentions. I introduce Alex to inversion, the trick where you ask what would make this fail, and he immediately wants to invert everything, including his sandwich, which is not the point, but we try to be flexible. We list sabotage scenarios like late-night scrolling or skipping cues, and then design barriers to those sabotages because preventing a problem is usually faster than fixing a messy habit afterward. Watching Alex take pride in his new anti-failure checklist is a little like seeing someone build an anti-sandwich moat. Extra steps, extra security, same deliciousness of results. I explain to Alex what opportunity cost means by pointing out that every choice steals time from another potential choice, and he reacts as if I called out his browser tabs by name, which they were not, but close. We compare choosing to doom scroll for 30 minutes with choosing to write 1 page. Both are valid choices, but the opportunity cost frames them differently and makes you a little more responsible for your future self. Alex does a theatrical gasp and vows to become an honor student for future Alex, which is both adorable and promising. I remind Alex that the 2-minute rule works for mental habits too. Commit to reading or planning for 2 minutes because the hurdle feels small and momentum tends to join you like a loyal dog. He tries it, expecting boredom, and instead discovers he often keeps going, proving once again that start friction is a dramatic overachiever in the failure department. We high-five in spirit, while I note that mental resistance often collapses when you lower the activation energy, and Alex calls it brain physics, which I allow because he sounds confident, and that's half the battle. I coach Alex to use pre-commitment strategies. Put obstacles between you and temptation, like putting your phone in the other room or prepaying for a class, and he reacts as if we're planning a heist, which is at least exciting. These commitments reduce the need for moment-to-moment heroics and instead rely on gentle system pressure, which is perfect for people who like structure and who also enjoy low-drama discipline, a category Alex claims to be mostly in. I tell him that's a noble starting point and also hand him an imaginary ribbon for effort. I tell Alex that once you reduce daily decisions, you free up psychic space for the things that actually matter, and he perks up because it sounds like fewer choices and more snacks, which is the dream. We audit his morning and find 5 tiny decisions draining willpower, then convert 4 of them into defaults like a preset breakfast or a go-to outfit, which he loves because he always hated mismatched socks anyway. The effect is immediate. His mornings feel calmer, his willpower meter reads less empty, and he brags about being decisions minimalist to anyone who will listen. I introduce Alex to batching. Group similar tasks into one focused block, and he imagines a superhero squad of emails and errands, all handled in one swoop, which is a surprisingly motivating visual. We set a 90-minute focus session for work, close irrelevant tabs, and give the session simple rules, then watch as Alex moves with unusual flow and only interrupts himself for a single celebratory fist pump. Batching reduces context switching, which reduces decision tax, and it gives him long stretches of winning momentum that are deliciously contagious. I show Alex easy automations, calendar rules, recurring payments, email filters, and he lights up like a kid who just discovered a new toy that does his chores for him, which is fair because adulting is basically a set of chores in fashionable packaging. By putting routine tasks on autopilot, we protect willpower for the meaningful hard things, and Alex enjoys the novelty of not being personally responsible for every tiny administrative decision, which he calls delegating to technology, and I calls smart delegation. We implement a couple of automations, and he breathes a sigh that sounds suspiciously like relief, and also a small victory salsa. I teach Alex the power of if-then plans, a simple script for future behavior like, if it's 6 p.m., then I will go for a walk, which he recites like a magical spell and tests immediately with dubious theatrical enthusiasm. These plans reduce the moment of choice debate because your brain has a default script, and Alex likes having a script because he's secretly a part-time amateur improviser who enjoys structure between his ad-libs. We write a few if-then lines and tape them to his bathroom mirror, where he adds doodles and calls them habit graffiti, which I find delightful and oddly effective. I counsel Alex on buffer zones, small built-in allowances for when life is messy, which he greatly appreciates because he once had a perfect days list dampened by 3 bus delays and a mysteriously heroic raccoon. We schedule lighter days after big effort days and plan recovery routines that are kind, simple, and guilt-free, which helps his system bounce back faster without moralizing about setbacks. Alex practices being compassionate with himself and learns how consistency isn't continuous perfection, but a forgiving rhythm, which he describes as resilient laziness, and I accept as a charming rebrand. I get Alex to treat habit building like a science fair project where the prize is better days and less frantic scrambling, and he begins with a clear hypothesis. Tiny, consistent actions lead to compounded gains over time, which sounds fancy and is secretly simple. He chooses measurable micro goals, like write 100 words a day, and we track them with a happy little chart he drew using 3 colors and a dramatic title. The chart becomes a visual motivator and a comedic prop he parades for friends who applaud like he's discovered a new civilization of good decisions, which I support wholeheartedly. I introduce A/B testing to Alex, which he interprets as a personality duel between 2 versions of himself, early Alex and procrastinator Alex, and then quickly suggests a referee, which I decline because it's getting theatrical. We run short experiments comparing two routines and watch which one sticks better. Alex treats the results like a sports scoreboard and learns that small environmental tweaks often beat pure willpower every single time. He is both delighted and a little scandalized to discover that moving his phone farther away wins the experiment handily, and I recommend sunglasses to shield his ego. I teach Alex to celebrate micro-progress because tiny rewards reinforce the neural pathways that build habits, and he becomes convinced that high fives are a legitimate form of neuroscience, which they mostly are when performed enthusiastically. We create a low-cost reward system, a sticker, a 5-minute break, a celebratory stretch that doesn't sabotage bigger goals, and he becomes a master of small, frequent celebrations that keep motivation alive. He performs a victory jig that is somehow both elegant and clumsy, and I know this ritual will become one of our secret success levers. I gently encourage Alex to fail fast and learn faster, and he takes it literally for a moment, which results in him dramatically tripping over an imaginary hurdle and then laughing at himself, which I consider a win for humility. We analyze failed habit attempts like friendly detectives, extract one insight at a time, and iterate. Maybe the cue was weak, maybe the reward was non-existent, maybe the time was terrible, or maybe the universe simply conspired against socks that day. Alex enjoys the detective metaphor and vows to wear a trench coat next time for authenticity, which I fully endorse as morale-boosting attire. After a batch of experiments, I coach Alex to scale what works, double down on tiny wins that fit his life, and let the rest quietly retire to the nice idea shelf where they belong. He selects 2 habits that stuck and builds small marginal improvements around them, like adding 2 more minutes to his reading or extending a walk by 1 extra street, and these tiny nudges compound in ways that surprise him and delight me. He celebrates with a very modest snack and an appropriately smug smile, which I record as a cautionary tale about reward timing, but honestly, also a deserved treat. I tell Alex that goals are like finish lines, exciting but lonely, whereas systems are the road you travel every day, and he likes roads because they have good coffee shops along the way. We convert his lofty ambitions into practical daily systems for writing, fitness, and learning, and build tiny, repeatable patterns that support those systems without drama. Alex appreciates the shift because systems are less about heroic bursts and more about showing up, which conveniently fits his schedule and his preference for modest daily triumphs over sporadic heroic sprints. I walk Alex through designing a day that funnels his energy toward meaningful work, a prioritized to-do list, time blocks, and deliberate breaks, and he reacts as if someone just handed him a treasure map that says less frantic, more productive. We craft a realistic schedule that respects his energy peaks and troughs, tucks away admin, and reserves prime creative hours for serious focus. And Alex is thrilled to discover that a well-designed day has emotional side benefits like fewer panic emails at midnight. He gives me a grateful nod and calls it adulting with flares, which I accept as a valid aesthetic. I help Alex set up tiny feedback loops, weekly reviews of what worked, what didn't, and one tweak to try next week, and he authenticates it with a serious face before instinctively adding stickers to the wins column because human brains love visual feedback. These loops keep systems honest and flexible, and Alex enjoys being experimental while also owning his progress in a low-pressure way. We celebrate adjustments like small upgrades to a machine, and he begins to relish being a tinkerer of his own life, which is both productive and adorable. I teach Alex how to set up accountability that feels supportive instead of shaming, small check-ins with friends, public small goalposts, or a partner to celebrate tiny wins, and he immediately suggests a dramatic announcement, which we tone down to honest update. true accountability builds compassion into your system. It nudges you forward, celebrates progress, and helps recover gracefully from slip-ups. Alex likes this because it combines social incentives with gentle encouragement, which is basically his favorite combo next to toast and jam. I remind Alex that sustainability beats intensity. Small steps repeated for years beat heroic short bursts, and he agrees, mostly because he enjoys the idea of long-term consistency without dramatic collapsing. We build systems for endurance, lower friction, predictable cues, and flexible goals that adapt as life changes, and Alex learns the quiet power of compounding days. He imagines himself as a slow-growing tree rather than a fireworks show, which is a surprisingly poetic image for a stick figure with orange hair, and I applaud his newfound arboreal ambition. I sit down with Alex when his motivation flattens into a respectable plateau, not tragic, just quiet, and we discuss normalizing plateaus as part of the process instead of dramatic failure points. He learns to lean on systems, revisit anchors, and apply tiny experiments to jumpstart momentum again, and I remind him that plateaus hide learning faster than they hide defeat. He nods, takes a deep breath, and admits that steady persistence is less sexy but more sustainable, which is an honest and slightly heroic admission for our friend. I reassure Alex that relapses are feedback loops, not punishments. They show where friction lives and invite redesign rather than shame, and he appreciates the permission to be imperfect since he once tried to be a perfect person for 24 minutes and it was exhausting. We analyze the relapse like curious detectives, identify a single cause to fix, and set one controlled tweak to try next, which feels manageable and hopeful. Alex practices self-kindness and the habit of one small corrective action, which is a far better method than dramatic overcompensation or emotional banishment. I coach Alex on adapting his habits when life throws curveballs, travel, illness, and deadlines, and he nods solemnly because he once had a deep emotional bond with his gym and then moved apartments, which was an honest grief. We outline rules for adaptation, reduce duration but keep the cue, switch to a maintenance version, or swap to a context-appropriate alternative, and Alex happily accepts the idea of habit triage during messy seasons. It's practical, kind, and keeps identity intact. You're still a person who values these things even if the format changes for a while. I help Alex connect habits to identity. Small actions that reinforce, I am someone who writes, or I am someone who moves daily, and he philosophically accepts the idea because it sounds profound and slightly dramatic, which he enjoys. We craft identity-based affirmations linked to behaviors, not vague promises, and he practices saying them while making coffee, which somehow turns mundane acts into character storytelling. Over time, these identity nudges accumulate into real personal change, and Alex tells a story about how small, consistent choices made him feel like a slightly more competent version of himself, which is beautiful and accurate. I give Alex, and you, a final checklist. Pick anchors, start tiny, design your environment, automate what you can, set if-then plans, batch tasks, and be kind in relapses, a compact toolbox of willpower shortcuts that actually work. Alex pretends to be handing out medals and instead gives out sticky notes, which is both practical and delightfully on brand, and we plan next steps, one habit to start this week and one micro-adjust to try. I close with a reminder that consistency is a craft learned by showing up repeatedly, not perfectly, and Alex waves his sticky note like a tiny flag of ongoing progress, which is exactly the energy we want.